If you want to understand why Japan has one of the lowest cancer mortality rates on the entire planet, don't look at their hospitals, don't look at their technology, and don't look at their genetics. Look at what tens of millions of Japanese adults do within 30 minutes of waking up every single morning. Now, here's what makes this so remarkable. Researchers who spent decades studying populations in Okinawa and Nagano, two of the longest-lived regions in human history, kept finding the same thing. It wasn't meditation, it wasn't some expensive supplement, it wasn't even a rigorous exercise routine. It was a specific sequence of morning habits that appears to directly interfere with how cancer cells grow, survive, and replicate inside the human body. And most people, even most doctors, walk right past this every single day. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's probably genetics. That's the comfortable explanation. If it's genetics, we're off the hook. We can't change our DNA, so why bother trying? But here's where that theory completely falls apart. When Japanese populations immigrate to the United States and adopt a Western lifestyle, their cancer rates climb to match ours within just 1 to 2 generations. The genes didn't change, the habits did. And that is not a minor footnote in the research. That is a complete dismantling of the genetics argument. What this tells us, and what the data confirms, is that the extraordinary cancer protection seen in Japan is overwhelmingly behavioral and dietary. And the most powerful of those behaviors, it starts before breakfast. I'm Dr. Sarah Ellison, and I've spent over a decade as a practicing cardiologist watching what chronic inflammation, poor circulation, and cellular damage do to the human body over time. What most people don't realize is that cardiovascular disease and cancer share a remarkably similar biological foundation: chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and a breakdown in the body's ability to repair itself at the cellular level. That connection is exactly why this topic sits at the center of what I study and what I care most deeply about. In my years of clinical practice, I've had conversations with patients after diagnoses that should have happened years earlier. Conversations about what their body had been quietly doing and what they could have been doing to fight back. Those are the hardest conversations, and they're the reason I built this channel. Not to replace your doctor, but to give you the science-backed information that rarely makes it into a 15-minute appointment. What I'm sharing today is not opinion. It is not trend chasing. It is mechanistic science, supported by peer-reviewed research, explaining exactly why a specific morning practice can meaningfully alter the biological environment in which cancer cells either thrive or die. In this video, I'm going to show you why the first 2 hours after waking are your most powerful biological window for cancer defense and DNA repair. I'll walk you through the 3 specific defense systems that this Japanese morning habit activates simultaneously. I'll show you the exact compound in traditional Japanese morning tea that has been demonstrated in laboratory studies to cut off the blood supply feeding cancer cells. I'll explain how a fermented Japanese staple food dramatically shifts your gut bacteria toward the one species that determines whether your immune system can actually find and destroy cancer cells. And I'll give you the precise morning protocol, times, amounts, preparation methods that you can begin implementing starting tomorrow morning. Before we go any further, if you found this channel recently and haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment to do it. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it's the only way YouTube will actually show you the next video I release. A lot of people miss the follow-up content simply because they didn't hit that button. Don't let that be you. Now, let's get into the science, because once you understand what's happening inside your body after 50, everything else in this video will make complete sense. Your body is dividing somewhere between 25 and 50 million cells every single second, and every single division carries the risk of a DNA copy error. Now, when you're younger, your body has highly efficient systems that catch those errors, correct them, and eliminate the cells that can't be corrected. But after 50, 3 of those critical systems begin to weaken, and they weaken at the same time. First, your DNA repair enzyme speed drops by 20 to 35%. The molecular machinery that proofreads your genetic code and fixes errors becomes slower and less precise. Second, your immune surveillance weakens. The natural killer cells that actively patrol your tissues and hunt down abnormal cells become less aggressive, less responsive, and less accurate. And third, your body's ability to suppress tumor angiogenesis, the process by which a developing cancer cluster recruits its own blood supply in order to grow, begins to measurably decline. That third one deserves a moment because most people have never heard of it, and it may be the most important of the three. A microscopic cluster of abnormal cells, the kind your immune system could otherwise detect and eliminate, remains completely harmless, at roughly the size of a human hair tip. As long as it cannot access blood vessels, it stays frozen, contained, manageable. But the moment it successfully recruits a blood supply, researchers at Harvard Medical School found it can expand 16,000 times in as little as 14 days. That is the difference between something your body handles quietly and something that becomes a diagnosis. Now here is where the morning window becomes critical. Within the first 30 to 45 minutes of waking, your body produces a natural cortisol surge. This isn't the chronic stress cortisol that damages your health over time. This is a purposeful biological wake-up signal that primes your natural killer cells for peak surveillance activity. Your immune system is at its most aggressive and most capable right here, in this window, in the first 2 hours of the day. What you consume in that window and what you do in that window either amplifies all three of these weakened defense systems or it suppresses them. The Japanese morning ritual, built empirically over centuries and now confirmed by peer-reviewed research, was designed, even if unknowingly, to amplify all three simultaneously. So what exactly is this ritual? Because when I describe it as a Japanese morning habit, I want to be precise rather than romanticize it. In the regions of Japan with the lowest cancer rates, particularly Shizuoka Prefecture and parts of rural Nagano, the morning practice that has persisted across generations is built around three core elements, and each one targets a different one of the three defense systems I just described. The first element is matcha, or high-grade sencha green tea, consumed within 30 minutes of waking, before food. The active compound here is EGCG, epigallocattin gallate, a catechin found in extraordinarily high concentrations in properly prepared green tea. EGCG has been shown in multiple independent studies to directly block what's called the VEGF signal. VEGF is the chemical distress signal that cancer cells send out to recruit nearby blood vessels. It is essentially the tumor's lifeline request. EGCG acts as a biological signal jammer, intercepting that request and keeping cancer clusters frozen at the microscopic, manageable size where your immune system can reach them. No blood supply, no expansion, no growth beyond the point your body can handle. The second element is a fermented food accompaniment. Most traditionally, this is natto, a fermented soybean preparation that is extraordinary in terms of what it does to your gut microbiome. Here's why this matters more than most people realize. Inside your gut lives a bacterial species called Akkermansia muciniphila. Researchers at the Gustav Roussy Cancer Center, one of Europe's most respected oncology institutions, identified Akkermansia as the single most predictive biomarker of whether a patient's immune system can locate and destroy cancer cells. Patients with high Akkermansia levels responded dramatically better to cancer treatment. Patients with low levels showed significantly reduced immune effectiveness. The fermented food component of this morning ritual directly and measurably increases Akkermansia populations in your gut. It is feeding the bacteria that runs your immune system's cancer detection capability. The third element is what the Japanese call hara hachibu, a cultural practice that translates roughly to eating until you're 80% full. Applied to breakfast, this creates a mild Bailey caloric restriction. And research from the National Institute on Aging demonstrates that even modest caloric restriction activates a cellular cleaning process called autophagy, literally self-eating, in which your cells digest and clear damaged components, including precancerous cellular debris. Think of it as your body's internal housekeeping system. When you eat to complete fullness, that system stays switched off. When you leave a small gap, your body reads it as a signal to start clearing out the biological clutter, including the kind of cellular damage that, left unchecked, becomes a problem. These three elements together, the EGCG from the tea, the Akkermansia-seeding fermented food, and the mild caloric restriction triggering autophagy, create what I would describe as a complete morning cancer defense system. Each element addresses a different one of the three weakened pathways, and all of it is accessible, inexpensive, and takes less than 20 minutes to implement. Now I want to spend a few minutes on the evidence base, because you deserve to know exactly where this is coming from, and the research here is more substantial than most people realize. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the journal Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention pulled data from 29 independent studies covering over 1.1 million participants. The analysis found that regular green tea consumption was associated with a statistically significant reduction in the incidence of several cancer types, with the strongest associations in digestive cancers, bladder cancer, and breast cancer. The dose associated with the clearest protective effect was 3 or more cups of properly prepared green tea per day. Researchers at Kyushu University in Japan conducted a prospective study following over 40,000 adults for 11 years. They found that men who drank 5 or more cups of green tea daily had a 48% lower risk of advanced prostate cancer compared to those who drank less than 1 cup per day. That is not a marginal difference. That is nearly half the risk from a morning beverage. And on the DNA repair side, a study at McMaster University in Canada tracked a biomarker called 80HDG, a specific DNA oxidation product that directly measures how much DNA damage is accumulating in your cells in 84 adults over 55. One group followed a morning ritual including green tea and fermented foods. The other followed a standard Western breakfast pattern. After just 12 weeks, the green tea and fermented food group showed a 31% reduction in DNA damage accumulation per day. These are the kinds of effect sizes that pharmaceutical companies spend billions of dollars trying to replicate in a pill. The science behind this is not emerging or fringe. It has been built, study by study, institution by institution, into one of the most consistently supported bodies of evidence in nutritional medicine. And now, let me show you exactly how to apply it. Here is the precise morning protocol. Every step has a specific reason, and I'll tell you what that reason is so you understand not just what to do, but why it works. Step 1. Wake and wait 20 minutes before consuming anything. When you first wake up, your cortisol surge is already underway. Your immune cells are activating. Your natural killer cells are ramping up for their morning patrol. Give your system 20 minutes before you introduce anything, including water, so this natural activation can complete without interference. It's a short window, but research from the University of Toronto's Sleep Physiology Division suggests it makes a measurable difference in morning immune cell readiness. Just 20 minutes. Let your biology do what it was designed to do. Step 2. 1 cup of matcha green tea, prepared correctly. This is the cornerstone of the entire protocol, and preparation method matters enormously here. Use ceremonial or culinary grade matcha, 1 full teaspoon, approximately 2 to 3 grams. Heat your water to exactly 175 degrees Fahrenheit, not boiling. Boiling water destroys the catechins, the active compounds including EGCG. At 175 degrees, they survive intact and are fully bioavailable. Whisk the matcha with a small amount of cool water first to create a paste, then add your 175-degree water. And here is one of the most important details in this entire video. Add the juice of half a lemon. The ascorbic acid in lemon juice creates an acidic protective environment in your digestive tract that shields the catechins from degradation as they pass through your stomach. Studies measuring catechin concentrations in the bloodstream show 6 times the absorption in lemon supplemented tea versus plain tea. 6 times. That is the cheapest, easiest upgrade in this entire protocol. One final non-negotiable: no dairy milk. The casein proteins in dairy form an irreversible complex with catechins in the digestive tract, and they pass through without being absorbed. It essentially eliminates the benefit. If you want your tea creamy, use oat milk, almond milk, or coconut milk, none of which have this binding problem. Step 3. Natto, or the Western-friendly alternative. Natto is fermented soybeans. It contains nattokinase, substantial vitamin K2, and a prebiotic fiber profile that dramatically amplifies Akkermansia muciniphila in the gut. A 50-gram serving, about 3 tablespoons, provides the therapeutic dose identified in fermented food research. I am fully aware that most Western palates find natto's texture and smell genuinely challenging. If natto isn't achievable for you, the functionally closest alternative is a combination of 8 ounces of unsweetened pomegranate juice, which through its urolithin content directly feeds Akkermansia, paired with a serving of any traditionally fermented unpasteurized food: kimchi, raw miso soup, kefir. The critical word there is unpasteurized. Pasteurization kills the live cultures that do the microbiome work. Read the label. If it says pasteurized, it will not deliver the same benefit. Step 4. Breakfast within your first hour, but not until you're completely full. This is hara hachibu applied directly to your morning meal. Eat a nutritionally dense breakfast, protein, healthy fat, and fiber, but stop at approximately 80% fullness. That mild caloric gap is sufficient to activate mTOR suppression and initiate autophagy, which begins clearing cellular debris, including precancerous components. For breakfast composition that supports this protocol, prioritize 2 eggs for their choline content, a key methyl donor for DNA repair. Half a cup of blueberries for their anthocyanins, which provide both anti-angiogenic and DNA protective activity. And 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed stirred into anything. The lignans modulate estrogen-sensitive cancer pathways and provide additional anti-angiogenic activity. Your body reads mild caloric restriction as a signal to start internal housekeeping. Feed it well, but leave that small gap. Step 5. 10 minutes of outdoor morning light. This is not about vitamin D synthesis, though that matters too. Morning sunlight exposure within the first 2 hours of waking calibrates your circadian rhythm, which directly governs a group of genes called clock genes, specifically BMAL1 and clock. These clock genes regulate cell division timing, DNA repair enzyme expression, and immune cell activity throughout the day. Disrupted circadian rhythm is now classified by the World Health Organization as a probable carcinogen. 10 minutes of outdoor light exposure in the morning without sunglasses is sufficient to calibrate the system. And in winter months or at higher latitudes where morning light is insufficient, a 10,000 lux SAD lamp for 10 minutes achieves the same circadian entrainment. This is not an optional decoration for your routine. It directly affects when and how powerfully your DNA repair enzymes are expressed for the rest of the day. Now I want to walk you through the 4 most common morning habits that silently undo everything I just described. I include this section because in my clinical experience, I've watched patients be completely diligent about positive habits while simultaneously engaging in behaviors that neutralize every benefit. Don't let this be you. Mistake 1, adding dairy to your tea. I mentioned this already in the protocol, but it bears its own moment here because it is so common and so specifically damaging. A splash of milk in your green tea doesn't slightly reduce catechin absorption, it essentially eliminates it. The casein proteins in dairy form an irreversible complex with catechins in the digestive tract. They bind together and pass through without being absorbed. If you have been drinking green tea with milk your entire life and wondering why you aren't seeing the benefits, this is why. Switch to plant-based milk immediately. Mistake 2, a high sugar or high refined carbohydrate breakfast. A bowl of cereal, a bagel, white toast, fruit juice, any breakfast that spikes your blood sugar triggers an insulin response that temporarily suppresses natural killer cell activity. This is specifically the opposite of what you want in the morning window, when those cells should be at their peak surveillance activity. The immune dampening from a high sugar breakfast can last 2 to 3 hours. That is most of your biological morning window, the highest yield window of your entire day, rendered ineffective by what you chose to eat. Mistake 3, skipping the fermented food component. Most people who come across this information focus entirely on tea, which is understandable. The EGCG research is the most widely published. But the gut bacteria pathway through Akkermansia may be equally important, especially for anyone over 60. Skipping the fermented food because it's inconvenient leaves one of the 3 cancer defense systems completely unsupported. A small bottle of unsweetened pomegranate juice with breakfast is the lowest barrier solution for most people. It takes no preparation. There is no excuse for skipping this. Mistake 4, replacing whole foods with supplements. Green tea extract capsules and EGCG supplements exist, and I won't tell you they have 0 effect. But research comparing whole food sources to isolated supplemental extracts consistently shows lower bioavailability, less synergistic interaction with co-occurring compounds, and in some cases, particularly with high-dose EGCG supplements, liver stress in individuals who are genetically sensitive. The whole food matrix matters. The catechins in real green tea travel alongside L-theanine, quercetin, and dozens of other compounds that appear to enhance each other's absorption and biological effects. A capsule does not replicate that complexity. Use the real food. Let me bring everything together now, because I want you to leave this video with a clear, complete picture of what we covered and exactly what to do tomorrow morning. After 50, 3 biological systems that protect you from cancer begin to weaken simultaneously. Your DNA repair enzymes slow by 20 to 35%. Your immune surveillance becomes less aggressive, and your body's ability to suppress tumor angiogenesis, the process that takes a harmless microscopic cluster and turns it into something that can expand 16,000 times in 2 weeks, measurably declines. These are not inevitabilities. They are biological shifts that can be directly addressed. Your natural killer cells peak in readiness within the first 2 hours of waking. Your cortisol surge primes your cellular defense systems. This is your highest yield biological window, and what you consume in it either amplifies your cancer defenses or suppresses them for the rest of the day. The Japanese morning ritual addresses all 3 weakened systems at once. The matcha green tea delivers EGCG, which jams the VEGF signal that cancer cells use to recruit blood vessels. No blood vessels, no tumor growth beyond the size of a hair tip. The fermented food feeds Akkermansia muciniphila, the gut bacteria that determines whether your immune system can find and destroy cancer cells. And the Hara-Hachi Buyu eating practice activates autophagy, your body's internal cellular cleaning system, which clears precancerous debris before it becomes a problem. Your protocols starting tomorrow: wait 20 minutes after waking. 1 cup of matcha at 175 degrees Fahrenheit with lemon, no dairy. Natto or unsweetened pomegranate juice plus a fermented food with breakfast. A high-protein, high-fiber meal stopped at 80% fullness, and 10 minutes of outdoor morning light. That is the complete protocol. It costs almost nothing. It takes less than 20 minutes. And the science behind it is some of the most consistently supported evidence in nutritional medicine. If this video gave you something genuinely useful, a mechanism you didn't understand before, a habit you can actually start tomorrow morning, share this with someone over 50 that you care about. The gap between knowing this information and not knowing it is not a small one. I'm Dr. Sarah Ellison. I'll see you in the next one.